Most people who can retire don't. Not because the number isn't there. The numbers are there. They just keep finding one more reason it isn't quite time yet. And the reasons are always reasonable. The market's uncertain, the kids have one more thing going on, the role might change, another year of contributions couldn't hurt. Every single one of those things is true, and none of them is actually what's going on. What's actually going on is harder to say out loud. So most people don't. Most people in their late 50s or early 60s are sitting in a window they don't even notice. Three things line up. Not investment tips, not a checklist, just three costs that never show up on a statement. Most people only see them when it's too late to do anything about it. The first one is geographic. Your dollar buys a different life in a lot of places. Not worse, just cheaper. Not cheaper because you give something up, cheaper because the priorities are different. Portugal, Mexico, Southeast Asia, some spots in Central America, you can have a good life there for a fraction of what it costs in most American cities. Not a rough life, a good one, slower, warmer, real food, real community, healthcare that doesn't blow up your finances if something goes sideways. The math isn't complicated. A retirement that feels tight at home feels completely different somewhere else. Same money, different life. And we're not talking about roughing it in some unfamiliar place and pretending it's adventure. We're talking about a real daily life. A good apartment, good weather, good food on the table, neighbors who actually talk to each other. The kind of life that costs $4,000 or $5,000 a month here costs half that there, sometimes less. That gap is real, and it's significant, and it doesn't require you to sacrifice anything that actually matters to you. But that window isn't permanent. Exchange rates shift. Those places get discovered, then developed, then expensive. The expat communities that make it easier are there now. They won't always be at this stage. And nobody says this out loud. Your body at 62 is not your body at 68. You can wait. It's just a different version of the story. The hiking you do at 62 is not the hiking you'll do at 69. The ease of navigating a new country, learning new rhythms, building a new social life from scratch, all of that is easier earlier. Every year you stay, that door gets a little heavier to push through. That's the cost. It doesn't show up anywhere. You just feel it one day when the moment has passed. The second one is about the number itself. If your number works, there's a question most people skip. What risk are you still carrying that you don't need to? Nobody nails the market. That's not the point. There's a difference between needing the growth and just not being ready to leave. One is a strategy. The other is hiding behind numbers, because the real thing is harder to talk about. And when another significant drawdown comes, not if, when it doesn't just affect the spreadsheet, it affects the timeline, it affects the options, it affects the things you were going to do in the first few years while you still had the energy to do them. That's the price tag nobody puts in the calculator. Not the lost dollars, the lost window on the other side of them. Think about what that actually means in practice. You're 63, the number works, and you stay in because leaving feels too final. The market drops 30% over the next 18 months. Now you're 65, the number doesn't work the way it did, and the 2 years you could have spent doing exactly what you wanted are just gone. Not delayed, gone. You don't get those years back at the end. The timeline doesn't extend to compensate. You just lost them while you were waiting to feel ready. You don't have to lock it all in. But staying exposed to risk you don't need anymore isn't smart investing. It's just familiar. And familiar has a cost too. It just shows up somewhere other than your account balance. The third one is one most people genuinely don't know about until it's already gone. Between the day you stop working and the day you start drawing Social Security or hit the age where required minimum distributions kick in, there's a window. Could be a few years, could be longer, depending on how you've set things up. And in that window, your taxable income drops significantly, potentially to almost nothing, depending on your situation. That window is a different tax world. Roth conversions that would be expensive later get cheaper. Capital gains that would get hammered in a higher bracket become manageable. The opportunity is real. The expiration date is set by when you leave, not by anything else. Most people find out about this years after it would have mattered. Not because their advisor failed them, sometimes they just weren't in the right conversation at the right time. And when they find out, the feeling isn't anger, it's something quieter than that. Just the understanding that there was a door, it's closed now, and they didn't know it was there. Some of this is just fair to say. There are real reasons to wait. If the number genuinely isn't there, waiting is just math. If you'd be miserable with unstructured time, if you've tried it, if you know yourself well enough to know that work isn't what's keeping you from your life, but is actually part of it, then staying makes complete sense. Some people are doing the work they were built to do, and retirement is genuinely not the goal. That's not avoidance, that's clarity. Not everyone who waits is running from something, but some people are, and they tend to know it. There's a specific feeling, and if you've had it, you know exactly what I mean, where the reasons you're giving for waiting don't quite feel like the real reason. Where the financial argument is technically true, but you're using it to carry more weight than it actually has. Where another year of contribution stopped being the point a while ago and became more about not having to figure out who you are when the structure goes away. Because that's the real thing underneath all of this. The money question is mostly solved. What isn't solved is the identity question. Who are you when you're not the person who goes to work? What do you do with a Tuesday that belongs entirely to you? Those questions feel small when you say them out loud, and they're not small at all. They're the actual reason most people who could leave don't. Not the market, not the contributions. The quiet fear of having to answer something about yourself that work has been answering on your behalf for 40 years. That's not a money problem, and solving it with more money is just postponing it. What another year actually buys, if you're honest about it, it buys familiarity. It buys a known schedule. It buys not having to answer a question about yourself that you haven't answered yet. Those aren't nothing. They're real, but they have a cost too, and the cost is denominated in something that doesn't appear on any statement. It's time. And the specific kind of time you have right now, the energy, the health, the options that are still fully open, that's the thing with the expiration date, not the money. The people who look back and say they left at the right time almost never say they wish they'd waited a little longer to make sure. They say they almost waited too long. They say they're glad they stopped treating the number as the only variable. So here's what I'd actually ask you, not in a generic way, but for real. If the financial question was completely settled, if someone sat down with you and walked through everything and said, you're fine, you can go, what would you do with that information? Because your answer to that question tells you more about where you actually are than any number does. See you in the next video.